main thing to remember is that cruising is now safer than it has ever been. All these precautions are doing wonders for the risk of other diseases. Like influenza was a real problem on cruises. 1% of travellers get influenza. And it was just notorious that there would be cruise lines where the boats would be basically moving the flu from cruise to cruise between the passengers and the staff. It was a terrible problem. Now, this sort of problem is going to go away because of all these lovely measures that have just been described. So I think the cruise is doing the right thing, and now it's up to the passengers to do the right thing. And that means things like making sure their medical care is stable, that they don't have any problems that are brewing, don't get on the boat sick, whether it's gastro illnesses, respiratory illnesses, that will be stopped by a lot of the testing. But once you get on the boat, the systems are not great for treating complicated things. You need to have them dealt with before you go. People need to have their vaccines, and everyone is obsessed with COVID vaccine. But in fact, measles spreads on cruise ships. Chickenpox spreads on cruise ships. And some of the staff, come from countries where these diseases may be more common than Australia. So it's very important that people have their routine childhood vaccines, things like their measles vaccine, which is not always the case. People think, oh, all my shots are done. Well, they're not always done. You need to check that. Having an influenza vaccine before you go, taking a little medical kit with your emergency supplies, and being prepared for things like pain and wounds, having lots of sunscreen and insect repellent, and their normal medications. One of the common reasons that people go to the ship's doctor is that they've forgotten to bring their normal medications with you. The thing that's really surprising when you're actually on the cruise is the most common reason people present to the cruise medical centre is respiratory illness, but the second one is falls. Many of the people are not familiar with walking around on boats, which might, sometimes wobble or have narrow stairs. And so it's very important that people are cautious with falls, and particularly alcohol increases the risk of falls. So people, need to indulge and have a good time and eat and drink and be merry, but they kind of need to keep a little bit of a devil on their shoulder and make sure that they're not overindulging, because there have been disasters where people have fallen off the boat because they've had too much alcohol and so on. So they really need to be careful with alcohol, excess food. Things like buffets have always been a worry, and now they're pretty much gone. You can't trust, that sort of environment for food serving. So they're making it's making cruising much safer. And one of the tips I always like to give people is, if you can, use your own bathroom. Norovirus has always been an issue on cruises, and it's a very hard thing to clean properly to decrease the risk of norovirus. Now the protocols are much stricter, and so that will be much less of a problem. But if you can use your own bathroom, then you know that it's very clean and no one's been in there kind of accidentally having accidents.
For people who are planning a trip and planning their booster shot, is it worth timing one towards the other?
You certainly want to have the booster at least 2 weeks before you depart, because the vaccine takes 2 weeks to work. You wouldn't want to have it the day you step on the cruise. But, if your booster's due, you should have it. It's not really worth sort of waiting to see if the booster can be a bit more effective when you're just getting on the boat, because the boosters work very, very well.